We're happy to see you. Some new faces as well as some repeat people. Tonight's speaker is one of our most favorite speakers. This is his third time in this lecture series coming here, so we're so fortunate that he was able to come. He spends most of his time in Mumbai, India, and it's His Holiness Radhanath Swami. And Radhanath Swami is one of the preeminent teachers of the Bhakti-yoga tradition in the world today, and leading spiritual master in the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He's also the author of The Journey Home, Autobiography of an American Swami, which is, for those of you who haven't got the book, you should get it tonight. Maharaj will be signing the book. It's a very exciting and fascinating story of his early life growing up in Chicago, and then a trip that he took when he was 19 years old. First a trip to Europe that ended up being a spiritual journey that took him penniless hitchhiking through Greece and Turkey, Iran, on his way to India, and getting into India. It's full of fabulous adventures, some hair-raising adventures, and many spiritual lessons he learned along the way. And then as he was traveling in India, in the Himalayas and in different places, he met with many different yogis, teachers from many different spiritual practices, and eventually met his eternal spiritual master, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness and leading proponent of the tradition of Bhakti-yoga, which is the path of devotional service to personal Godhead Sri Krishna. And Maharaj has since been one of the foremost disciples of Srila Prabhupada, and he took the holy renounced order of life, the sannyas or the monastic order of life, in 1981. For over 25 years he's been the director of a world-renowned ashram and temple in the Chowpatty neighborhood in Mumbai called the Radha Gopinath Temple, and he's been engaged in a number of humanitarian activities also, including an orphanage. The midday meals program serves over 260,000 plates of sanctified Krishna Prasadam, healthy, nutritious meals to children from the slums of Bombay every day. Eye camps, a missionary hospital, and many other wonderful humanitarian activities. He is known for his very deep realizations about spiritual life, and particularly about the path of devotion to Krishna. And he's also known for his explanations of that which is essential to all religious practices, despite the various disparities of different doctrines and rituals. But he can see the unity and can explain the unity underlying all religious and spiritual practices. So we're very fortunate tonight. Please welcome His Holiness Radhanath.
Ajnantimidandasya Jnananjanakshadakaya Chakshurum Militam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namah Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatharine Namo Mahabharanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauradvishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Deve Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patithanam Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Truly a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you this evening at this very great institution of learning, Stanford University. Thank you so much for coming. I was asked to speak on the topic of, what is the topic? Our world, a time for positive change. Okay. In this Silicon Valley Bay Area, very renowned throughout the world for technology, the development of science, and everyone is trying to make a change for some reason in this world. great scientist Albert Einstein. He wrote something that always struck me, because he really knows science, and he knows the potential of technology. And a lot of his discoveries and his wisdoms are foundational for the scientific discoveries and technologies developed today. He wrote that we cannot solve the problems that we're currently facing with the same awareness that created them. Awareness means consciousness. Real solutions cannot be based on superficial methods. It has to be built upon a change of consciousness. I was speaking the other day about the principle of health. If a person has recurring boils due to a disease in the blood, we have to treat the symptoms with compresses, some salve, and other things like that. But however many times we treat the symptom, if we don't cure the root cause, the boils will recur. So what are the roots of the problems that we're facing in today's world? So often, individually, collectively, nationally, internationally, there are just so many things we have to deal with. We become so caught up, stressed out, and obsessed with just putting out this fire here and a fire there, that we never really take the time to think about why it's happening and what we could do about it. According to the Vedas, the ancient scriptures of India, there is a root cause of suffering and the problems that suffering creates. And that is avidya, which means, one translation is ignorance. Ignorance could mean so many different things for so many different people. But it means not understanding who we actually are and what is it we're dealing with in this world. Our Guru Srila Prabhupada, my beloved teacher, he would take very, very complex subjects and put them in very simple, easy to understand explanations. That if a person is driving a car, and actually most of us have probably had different types of cars. As in my own life, my first car that I ever drove was my mother's. She had a Pontiac GTO with a 389 cubic inch engine. And that was a nice car. When I went to get my driver's license with my mother's car, the examiner said, nobody comes to get their license in a race car. It's quite obvious what you're going to do with it. And I said, what can I do? It's my mother's car. I said, I'd really like to meet your mother sometime. Anyways, I was tired of waiting for her to let me use her car, so the next car I got, from a Pontiac GTO to a 1953 Rambler. And it cost me $30,000. $5. And believe me, I got what I paid for. Every time I rode it, something was falling off. And so many cars. But the driver is the same person. Now the needs of our car, whether it's a Toyota or a Ford or a Chevrolet or a Mercedes-Benz, whatever it may, or a bicycle. According to our vehicle, they have needs. We have to put air in the tires. We have to put gasoline or petrol. We have to put oil. Otherwise, the car's going to break down. But the driver of the car needs something altogether different. If the driver of an automobile drinks gasoline, they probably won't be able to drive much longer. What is the need of the driver of this vehicle called a body? This body that's seeing through the eyes and tasting through the tongue, and presently I hope you're hearing through your ears. Thinking through the brain, loving through the heart. The body that moves the hands to create so many wonderful things. This body is like a vehicle. But we become so obsessed with satisfying the needs of the vehicle, we forget who we are and what our needs are. This, according to Sanskrit, is avidya. It is the responsibility, if you want your car to be useful, we do have to take care of it. We have to wash it and shine it and give it oil changes and tune-ups and everything else. But we should also be healthier within. Anandamayo Bhyashat. What is the most fundamental need that every single one of us have? This is a universal truth. Whether we are white or black or red or yellow or brown or male or female, whether we're humans or whether we're from any of the lower, or let us say other species. We're all looking for pleasure. And pleasure that satisfies us is pleasure that actually touches the heart. Things can satisfy the body and senses. Things could, to some degree, satisfy the mind. But only love can satisfy the heart. To give love and to be loved is the basis of the happiness of the heart. If we have that, in whatever situation we're in, we can be happy. If we don't have that, we could be famous. We could be the top of the field of whatever activities in our occupation. We could be millionaires or billionaires. Our life will not be fulfilling. There will be no inner meaning. Love is the most powerful motivating force. But unfortunately, in the absence of that, then our motivating force becomes greed or arrogance or anger or very, very selfish passions that we need more and more and more, and it's never fulfilled. Because what are we trying to fulfill? We're trying to fulfill that innate need to love and be loved of the heart. understand this principle, is human value. Shakespeare, he has written, if you lose all your wealth, you have lost nothing. If you lose your health, you have lost something. But if you lose your values, you have lost everything. Because it's about the sacred values that we have within ourselves that bring real fulfillment and that can actually create positive change within the world. Gandhi made that famous statement. Be the change you want to see in the world. It's a very cheap cop-out to just be criticizing others. It's so unfortunate. People are attracted to that, whether it's in politics, whether it's in personal activities. My beloved Guru Srila Prabhupada, when somebody would be finding faults with somebody else, Srila Prabhupada would have a simple formula. Don't criticize. Do something better yourself. Let your example speak. It's so easy to just point fingers. And as long as we do that, we never change. We want everything else to change, and we want everyone else to change. And we blame everybody else for our own problems and our own shortcomings. Education, the original word, educare, means to bring out what is within oneself. True education is not just about collecting more and more and more data and somehow or other putting it in our brains. That could be extremely useful. But real education is to bring out the inherent godliness, the inherent goodness, the inherent love that is within our own hearts. And when we can be instruments of that most powerful energy, then whatever we do and whatever we have has unlimited value. A simple example, because there are so many things within this world. There's a saying that in a cultured society, people use things and love people. But in the world we live in today, all too often, people love things. And to get things, we use people. And for an enlightened person, even if you are amassing incredible quantities of things, if we haven't learned to love, we are in desperate, pitiable poverty within. This is most important for human beings to really understand. Things are potentially divine if we just understand how to use them properly. The simple example is a knife. A little knife, if it's in the hands of a thief, it will slash someone's throat, kill them, to steal from them. In that sense, the knife is a very, very evil instrument. A surgeon can take the exact same knife and save a person's life. Is the knife good or bad? It just depends on whose hands it's in. What the values are of the person who's holding it. And that's the way everything is in this world. Most of the most serious problems in this planet are being created by very, very highly educated people. The global warming, the environmental disasters that are impending, pollution of the air, the sky, the water, the earth. It's not being created by little village farmers in Maharashtra, India. The amassing of nuclear bombs. Recently I saw a documentary, it was really scary, about the Cuban Missile Crisis back in the 60s. We were this far from an all-out nuclear war based on miscommunication. And the person who was narrating it, the Secretary of Defense for the time, was saying, the potential of that happening today is much greater than then. Who's creating them? You see, education, knowledge, when it's in the hands of people with high values, it could be instrumental in doing such great good for the world. But when it's in the hands of people who are either evil or simply confused, the same thing can be very, very destructive. Thief or a surgeon. What's the difference between them two? Their values. One is selfish and wants to exploit, and the other is compassionate and wants to heal. This is really the great crossroads that every human being has had. What is going to be our goal? What is going to be our values in our life? Are we simply going to, in California, I see people surfing on the ocean side. I was just in Malibu and all these other places. And I grew up in Illinois. In the 1960s, we used to hear these songs about surfing. It just sounded so nice. We would see people surfing on television. We're just driving around our Rambler, hearing songs about surfing in the sunlight of California. But anyways, surfing. We shouldn't just surf with the wave of what everybody else is doing. We should find a better wave. Because in this world, we're either part of the problem or we're part of the solution. And so many times we think, what difference am I going to make if I make conscious choices that are for the welfare of the world? I'm only one person. A person who's thinking in the terms of ahimsa, nonviolence. May think, if I don't eat meat, what effect is that going to have on the industry of the slaughterhouses? So who cares? If I don't tell the truth, There's so many other people lying in this world and exploiting people and cheating people. What difference am I going to make? In the Bible, Jesus tells a universal principle. Stand out from among men and be separate. That's where real quality and fulfillment is. When we decide consciously to live with character and integrity, with values. But if you try to do that, anyone tries to do that, we're going to be tested at every step. Because it's just so easy to be duplicitous. And it's really a challenge to be good. And we sell out the meaning and fulfillment of our life for all this stuff. Today I was telling a little story about when I was sitting on the bank of the Ganges River. This was back in 1971. And there was a hawk who was hovering over my head with his wings expanded. Very beautiful bird, gigantic bird with brown, white, gold, some black wings. I was looking up. And his yellow eyes were glistening in the sun. He looked so intent. He was coming down closer, closer. He was only a few feet above my head. And his claws were like this. I felt very vulnerable. Because I don't know how to fight hawks. I was really thinking, God, he could rip my eyes out in a second if he wants to. So I was meditating actually, but I was a little distracted by this hawk. And I was thinking, what is the lesson I'm going to learn from this hawk? And suddenly, the hawk dove right into the water, went underwater. There was a skirmish going on. Splashing, splashing, splashing. The hawk emerged from the water. And in his sharp claws, there was a fish. This happened just about as far away as my beloved little Pooja is. Would you like to stand up, Pooja? This is my beloved Pooja. She said, she's everyone's beloved Pooja. And I was looking in the fish's eyes. He was, what just happened to me? He was totally bewildered, disoriented, and flapping desperately as the hawk tightened its grip and flew higher and higher and higher. And I was thinking, isn't that little fish like so many of us? It was just, I don't know if it was a he or a she, actually. Would you rather call he or she? I'll call him he because I was identifying with him. So he was just going about his day like any other day. Swimming upstream, downstream, across stream. Probably with a school of other fish, family members, friends, looking for food, swimming in circles, playing. Every other day, just swimming. Had absolutely no idea that the hawk of faith would rip him out. Of everything he knew. So we go about our lives. We read about it in newspapers. We see it in television if we watch television. We have experienced it happening in our own lives, in our friends and loved ones' lives. Padam padam yadvi padam natesham. At any moment, there could be tragedy. There could be a great challenge in our life. A hawk of fate. But I was thinking, if that fish was swimming deeper, the hawk of faith could not touch it. And this is the basic principle of the Bhagavad-gita. Vishayavani vartante niraharasya deyana rasa vartam rasopyasya param dristvani vartate. That if we find that inner fulfillment, that depth of who we are, what is our relationship with God, with our essence, we call Krishna, the all-attractive object of all love, then our fulfillment is so deep. Our meaning and our purpose to whatever we do is so deep because we're doing it out of love. Bhakti-yoga Thakur explained, what is the symptom of one who has found that love within him or herself? When there is love for God, it manifests as compassion. Compassion for all beings. In the world today, there is a great, desperate need to understand these universal, essential principles. Because sectarian ideologies, religions, they kind of insulate and isolate people. And usually they really, really feed and nourish our egos. Because I'm of this religion, I am better than everyone else. That's what the ego wants. Because I'm of this nationality, I am better than everyone else. But in every true spiritual path, we find that the quality of a person who's actually enlightened is they are humble. Amani namana dena. They offer all respect to others. Why do they offer all respect to others? Vidyavanaya sampane brahmani gavyasti. Maivam so jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana. Because when we realize our own essence, our own spiritual nature, our own relationship with God, with the Supreme Being, then we see that every living being is our brothers and sisters. Every living being is a part, a divine spark of the Supreme Being. What we call Krishna, the all-attractive one. When we realize it within ourselves, we can perceive it in others. And then the inner fulfillment of that love and expressing that love through works and acts and words of compassion, that brings us such deep fulfillment that whatever that hawk of faith may do cannot touch the purpose and fulfillment of our life, because we are swimming deep in the river of truth. That is a universal principle. Not this I know and you don't. If we actually know, we should experience, we should realize. People are so addicted and so obsessed with so many superficialities. In the name of politics, in the name of religion, in the name of sociology, in the name of economics. if there's going to be a real change in the world, there has to be this change of consciousness where we're actually understanding ourselves from this spiritual perspective. And we're understanding the world from a spiritual perspective. The world is not ours to exploit. Mother Earth is giving us everything we have. Giving us our body, giving us our air, our water, our food, and everything. She's not ours to exploit for our arrogant, selfish purposes. It is our sacred duty to live in harmony and serve the God-given resources of Mother Nature. And all beings. It is said that humanity, the human being, has such an evolved state of consciousness wherein we can actually rise above the conception of jiva jiva sajivanam. That a strong being makes a weaker being its food. I have some friends who work on Wall Street. And they told me that when they got a job, I'm not going to mention the companies, but you've all heard of them. This was their training. I was shocked. It was so obvious. He said, this is what they tell us right off the bat. That you are here to eat each other. You are here to conquer each other. If you want to get ahead, you have to be willing to tear each other apart competitively. And if you have morals about this, then you will never succeed. This is what some of the biggest Wall Street companies teach their employees. And he told me, that's exactly what everyone's doing. So this one person, you know what happened? He played the game for a while. Then he became a monk. And after he became a monk, now he's a counselor for Wall Street people. Real fulfillment is not going to come through that. We have responsibility to each other, to the animals, to the birds, to the fish. The other day a lady came up to me and said, I love to eat fish. Is there anything wrong with that? I said, I'm not going to be judgmental and say whether it's wrong or right or any of this, because you are you, I am me, but I'll say one thing. This is not a subjective, this is an objective principle. When you're fishing and you're pulling the line with the fish, and that fish and your line is going like this, and your pole is bending, and the fish is going, please understand that that fish is desperately fighting for its life in total fear and pain. And if you had a hook in your stomach, you would do the exact same thing. That's my answer. It's the reality. Compassion. couple of weeks ago, I was walking through Regent's Park in London, and everybody that was walking by me had a dog on a leash. Incredible dogs they have in London. They were so well groomed. There was, I don't know all the names, but they were actually beautiful dogs. You know, Swamis, I guess, are allowed to say that. Pedigreed poodles and Dobermans and collies and German shepherds and some of these pit bulls. And they were all, you know, very, very nicely being cared for. They're not humans, but all animals. I used to take care of cows for many years. They feel pain. They want love, just like our dogs do. To the degree we actually go deep within ourselves and find that love of God and realize our own essence, to that degree, we're going to paradukadoki. We're going to feel love and compassion wherever the sacredness of life is present. This change of awareness is so important. This change of awareness is at the very heart of education, where we could use our software technology, our mathematics, our scientific knowledge. We could use our physical strength, our political powers, our business sense, and all the things we have in a mood of unselfish, compassionate service, rather than just the unquenchable thirst to get more and more and more and more and more. Srila Prabhupada, my beloved Guru, he gave a beautiful little analogy. He said, when a drop of water falls from the sky, in its original state it's pure and transparent. But when it comes in contact with the ground, it becomes muddy. You can't see it anymore. You can't see through it anymore. But if we filter that water, we bring it back to its natural state. Real education, the highest education, or Dharma, teaches us, along with whatever we're learning and doing, how to cleanse our consciousness. Originally, it is pure. It is transparent. Our consciousness, when it's pure, we see who we really are. The Atma, the soul, is eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. And we could do incredible, wonderful things through the vehicle of this body if we just experience that, connect to that. To filter our consciousness of the egoism, the selfishness, the greed, and the envy that's polluting us. That's real wisdom. That's the highest knowledge. This chanting of God's names that was at the beginning of the program, this kirtan or mantra, it's an ancient process by which we filter our consciousness, we cleanse our